Good evening, everybody. I wanted to extend a warm welcome to all of you this evening, and thank you so very much for your time in joining us here with the Mental Health Task Force and Communities That Care. This is our second webinar event, and we're very, very excited to bring this to you today, especially this day being Bell Let's Talk Day. So that's wonderful to have everybody present. I'll keep my talking short and sweet. I just also wanted to take advantage, though, of a plug for a save the date. Our next webinar will be in February 25th, and we'll bring to the table at that time Craig Smith, the president of the St. John's Firefighters Association. But for this evening, I must say we are so incredibly pleased to present to you Ms. Paula Corcoran from the Consumers Health Awareness Network of Newfoundland and Labrador, also referred to as CHANNAL. Paula is the executive director of this, the only peer-led mental health and addictions organization in the province. So that's me. I'm going to very quickly turn this over to Paula. And again, thank you so much for joining us this evening, Paula, and we look forward to what you have to bring to us over the next hour. And over to you. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tina. I'm going to assume that my audio is good. Thumbs up from someone. Excellent. Fantastic. So thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you for the invite, first and foremost. Very exciting that serendipitously it happened on today, Bell Let's Talk, when we're talking about mental health, one specific day of the year. And as I tweeted this morning, let's talk about this, not just today, but every day. So we've only got about 45 or so minutes together. If anyone who knows me knows I can speak probably 100 times longer than that. So we're going to try my best to keep it to about 40 minutes because I want to talk to you folks. I want to see what you folks are interested in hearing about. So I want to hear some questions. Of course, it's only a small group tonight, so I definitely want to encourage this to be a conversation as opposed to a presentation. When Isabel and Brad reached out to me and said, "Oh, do you want to do a PowerPoint?" And I said, "No, it's 7 o'clock on a Thursday evening. Let's just have a chat. Let's just have a conversation." And so here we are. So if you folks are comfortable enough to pop on your camera, that's great. If you're comfortable to leave it off, that's fine too. As long as I got a couple of faces so I don't feel like I'm sitting down talking to myself on the computer, that's great. So I'll start off with a little bit about the organization that I work for and a little bit about our experience and my experience over the last 10 years. We'll talk a little bit about mental health in general in the community, and then maybe finish off with some information about you folks and how do we put some resources in your hands. So the organization is a provincial organization. So we are right across the province into Labrador. And we have right now 6 offices across the province. We've got one office in Central, one in Western, one in Burin, and 2 here in the St. John's metro region, one in Mount Pearl, one here in St. John's. And those offices, we run a variety of different programs from those offices, of course. Unfortunately, with COVID, we've changed our dynamics significantly. But right now, and we can only talk about right now, we run a program which is called the Warm Line. And that program is an extensive program. It's been running now for about 4 years, and we offer what we call pre-crisis support. And so it's really, it's a service that we really promote to the general population. So any of you folks on the line today, when you're having those days that work is just really, really bothersome and pressure filled, maybe your partner is getting on your last nerve, maybe the children are coming home from school, just not even coming home from school, stuck at home because there is no school. Those are the types of calls, and those are the types of concerns that we get on the call. It's those pre-crisis calls where sometimes you just need someone to talk to. You just need to get something off your chest. And all of our staff are trained peer supporters. And what that means is that, number one, we all have our own lived experience. We all identify with having a mental health or addictions condition, myself included. And we've used our experiences to support others, and we've received extensive training to do so. So our staff would go through approximately 6 months to a year worth of training. And the training really gives us the skill set to be able to use our stories. And so that's one of the biggest programs that we have. We serve about 2,000 people a month, every month. And as you can imagine, with the pandemic that's happened over the last little while, we're receiving about 120 new callers every single month. So of course, the reach is huge. And we love promoting that because, of course, we know the geographic challenges of our province. I think it's 600 communities with less than 500 people. We have to be creative. We have to be use our ingenuity to reach out to those smaller communities and those smaller municipalities. So that's the service that I really wanted to promote. We do a couple of other things. We do one-on-one support where folks can book an appointment with us. We do group support. Right now, of course, it's virtually. We do that a couple of nights a week, and tonight is one of those nights. It happens from 6 to 9 on Thursday nights, where you actually sign in and use the same platform, Zoom, that we're using here tonight. So those services, again, are all free of charge, all delivered from that lived experience perspective. And so we're not necessarily going to have you engaging with a counselor or a therapist, although those individuals are fantastic and their roles are really important. The role of peer supporter is a little bit different. And it's different in the sense that it's an ability to, I have the ability to say, I get it. I know where you're coming from. I can relate to your experience because I've been there myself. I've been there as recently as this time last year when my mental health was not doing so great. So we're able to have that experience. So in terms of our service, I really wanted to touch base really quickly on that. In terms of the organization, it's been kicking around for about 30 years now. And we started off as a really small, informal group of folks who just came together to share our experiences. And over the years, over the last certainly 10 years while I've been a part of the organization, we've really branched into a larger standardized formal organization, formal process, if you will. So right now, beyond those services that we offer directly to the community, such as the warm line, the one-on-one, and the groups, we also deliver what we call community supports. And so what that means is we actually rent out, I guess, if you will, we borrow our staff out to other organizations. So right now, again, in your communities, you may be familiar with the FACT teams, or the ACT teams are starting to pop up across the province. And those are teams of different disciplines within mental health that are specifically offering support to folks who are really challenged with their mental health. So have a lot of complex needs, serious persistent needs. And so these teams are designed to support those people specifically. And the reason I bring it up is because as an organization, we actually provide the staffing, the peer support staffing for those teams. So we're actually across the province on 15 of those teams, as well as a doorway project. Again, not sure who's familiar with those projects, but we have, I want to say 50 plus doorway sites across the province. And certainly, again, on your local health region, if it's whatever health region you live in, their website usually has a full listing of what doorways are available in the region. And what doorways is a walk-in service, just like your walk-in clinic for your GP. And you get to walk in and actually see a counselor one-on-one immediately. And so those services were created to really tackle the wait list, the significant wait list that I'm sure we're all familiar with and we've all heard about. I reflect back on my time when I was first diagnosed about 15 years ago. The wait list at that time, I believe, was 18 months. And of course, as we know, when mental health is a challenge, when addictions is a challenge, 18 months is a really long time. And a lot can happen in 18 months. So the invention or the creation of these doorways was significant because folks could very much the same day walk in, fill out a form, and receive treatment that day. And so again, the reason I bring that up is because our organization also provides staffing to those models. So at any of those programs, you can walk in, and the beauty of the design is that the very first person you encounter is someone with lived experience. And I've used that term a couple of times and I've implied what it means. But when we use that term, it really just means someone who identifies with having a mental health condition or an addictions issue. And so the very first person you encounter is someone like myself who can say, yeah, I get it. I've been there. I know what you're going through. And that changes the dynamics. That changes the dynamics. It takes away the fear. It takes away the insecurities. And it creates a bond. It creates safety for folks. So in terms of the services that are, I know when Brad and I talked, he said, well, let's talk about services. We could be here for 3 hours if we were to start talking about the services. Contrary to popular belief, there's actually a lot of mental health and addiction services here in our province. The issue is their accessibility. So we can have all of the programs in the universe, but if it takes 18 months to get to the program, that's not very effective. If you have to fly from Labrador down to St. John's just to use the program, that's not super effective. So one of the challenges here in the province is that accessibility factor. So as an organization, again, we promote that there's no, oh, my dog said hi. Of course, they're going to bark tonight. In our organization, we promote that we don't actually have a wait list. Again, if you need our services, it's simply walk in, it's simply give us a call. So we're really, really happy that we're able to do that. And again, that comes from a place of all of the staff, all 30 plus of my staff right now. We all have been there. We've been on the phone where we've had to wait for a call back for 2 or 3 or 6 weeks. We've all been there when we want to go to a service, but it's too far away or we can't afford the taxi. And so a lot of the services that we look at really looks at breaking down those barriers, breaking down those challenges. Two of the other pieces of work that we do in our organization is policy consultation as well as public education. So we have quite a range of programs that we do deliver from what we call contact-based learning. And again, what that means is you're learning from someone who lives the experience. So if we were going to talk about women in technology, no offense, gentlemen, but we certainly wouldn't be as effective if we sent a man in to deliver the presentation. It's much more effective coming from a woman who in fact works in technology, and no different than what we do at Channel. When we do talk about mental health conditions, when we do deliver trainings, we deliver that from our staff who all live with those types of conditions. And of course, the impact and the power of that is very much seen when we're able to have the conversation around, this is what I experience versus that's what those people over there experience. It really changes the dynamics. So what we're doing here tonight, of course, some public education, but we also have some formal programs that we deliver. We have the recovery approach. We have a peer support training program. We have a mental health first aid program that's regulated and standardized through the Mental Health Commission of Canada. We have a chronic pain management program where we incorporate mental health into that. And the whole zoo is coming out. Here's the cat, great. So we have, again, a whole range of programs that we do deliver. And while I've read them off really quickly, I can certainly, Brad, provide that information to you to send out because there is quite a range. Some of them do have a cost associated, but a lot of them don't. Tonight, for example, something similar to this, there's usually no cost associated with something like this. So again, if you folks are interested in that aspect, hi. If you folks are interested in that aspect, oh, it's so lovely working from home most days. If you folks are interested in public education, again, we deliver from that contact-based education, and we can certainly have a conversation. And one of the programs, because of course I've been contemplating or percolating about this session tonight, there are a couple of programs that I'd really love to talk a little bit further with you folks about and seeing how we can find opportunities. One in particular, I created specifically actually a couple of years back for constituency assistance and executive assistance for government. And we named this Responding to Critical Calls. And the purpose of that training is taking individuals like yourself who don't necessarily have any kind of a medical or a mental health background, but you folks get critical calls all the time. You folks are the ones getting the phone call. I don't have the money to pay my bill, my water bill. You're the one getting the call. My water pipes have broken. People who are really in those really challenging, critical times with really no resources and potentially nowhere else to turn. And you folks are the ones that are often getting those calls. You folks are the ones on the other end of the phone going, I don't know what to do. And then you're left feeling not so great because you've been left to feel that you don't really have a lot of room to support someone. So I'd highly encourage, again, Brad or Isabel or Tina, for us to have that conversation at a later time. It's a larger program. It's about, I think that one in particular is a day long. So again, certainly wouldn't be effective to talk too much about it here tonight. But really, we want to look at how do we put that skill set, how do we put that information into your hands? Because sometimes you are the point of contact. That's our public education. The last one I want to talk about is our policy consultation. So again, as an organization, we've done quite a bit of work over the last 10 years engaging with the community. We've done some work around changing policies, specifically around mental health and addictions. We've done some work with municipalities, similar to some of the ones at the table today, around looking at their policies, around looking at are there policies and procedures framed within a mental health and addictions framework? Is it framed within a psychological health and safety framework? We've done some work with other municipalities around duty to accommodate. Are you familiar with, that duty to accommodate from a mental health perspective? We often talk about it from a physical perspective. We know that if somebody uses a wheelchair in our workplace, we have to make sure they're accessible. It's accessible, but do we know what we do when that's a mental health challenge that someone lives with? Do we know how to accommodate that in the workplace? So again, some broader conversations that I see wonderful partnerships starting to develop here tonight that we can really start to branch out over the next few months. So that's a little bit of a high level. I just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of flavor of what we do, again, in terms of the peer support specifically, but also the public education and the policy consultation. In terms of the work that we do, we again provide this work right across the province and into Labrador. And we've been doing this again for about 15, or I've been here for about 10 years, and the age range is wide. We, on the books, of course, say 16 because we have to pick a range when we work in nonprofits. So 16 to no cap on the other side. But we have provided services and public education and peer support to youth populations as well, younger than 16. So again, there's very little that we don't support. There's very little that we don't work with and engage with. Okay, so I'll take a breath there. I just want to check in. Any questions, comments, thoughts, reactions, jokes?
Paula, it's Brad Power here from Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks for joining us tonight. M&L is certainly proud to be a partner with the Municipal Mental Health Task Force and to help facilitate the meetings and whatnot. I've got two questions. I'm going to hold one for later, but first one, can you just clarify, so all these peer supports and stuff that you've noted, they are all available to the public, is that correct? Anyone can utilize those, doesn't make a difference where you work, who you represent, or so on?
Absolutely correct, Brad. And surprisingly, with, again, when we think stereotypically, it's folks who are not well who are calling the lines, but we keep the stats, and you would be absolutely surprised to see the number of professionals that call who are having a tough day at work. They're calling from their office. They're clinicians or service delivery individuals who are who have just had a really bad encounter and they need someone to debrief with, and they don't have that service. So it is absolutely open, free of charge to anyone who feels that they need to talk to someone. And again, just to kind of, push that envelope, oftentimes as humans in particular, will hold back and kind of say, oh, well, I'm not that bad, or, oh, I don't want to use that service because someone worse than me might need to use that service. I'm sure every one of us have thought that at once, but we get folks who call us up and go, and I'm just going to use Tina's name. Hey, Paula, it's Tina. I just wanted to check in and say I didn't have anything to drink today. And we'll go, oh my God, Tina, that's fantastic. Okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow, and click. It doesn't have to be something dramatically wrong, because we know early intervention. I cannot stress the early intervention. My nan would always say a stitch in time saves 9. Right. And if we can have that conversation now when you're just starting to get overwhelmed at work, then we know the research tells us we're going to actually prevent you from, in 6 months' time, having to take 6 months off work.
Isabel Fry asks if you could just confirm what the warm line telephone number is.
Great. Thanks, Isabel. It's 1-855 753 2560. That's toll free. And there we go. Thanks, Brad. And of course, locally, it's just the 753-2560 without the 188. Thank you, Isabel.
Nicole Holland posted in the chat room there. She said, would love to become more inclusive in our policies and procedures. I can't wait to hear more, and thank you. Excellent point that Nicole raises. You know, what would your advice be to municipalities in particular in regard to developing more inclusive policies and procedures?
So it's a tough one because, of course, I recognize working in nonprofit myself. There's not often a lot of time. There's not often a lot of money. There's not often a lot of resources. But certainly sitting down with someone from our organization or someone who does, this type of work. And to be quite honest, our organization is the only one that I'm familiar with that does this type of work. And really just looking at the policies. I'm actually involved with Workplace NL as well. I'm the vice chair of their board of directors. And very often we sit down and literally just read the policy word for word and we wordsmith. We say, not sure that that's a really inclusive word. We're going to change that word up. This policy here makes me feel like you're being a little bit judgmental. Let's change the language here. And so that's a service that the organization, and eventually when I leave Channel in 2 months, that's some work that I'll actually be doing independently as well. So reaching out to Channel certainly is a good place to start.
Are you seeing more organizations across the province implement those policies and procedures? Is it something that, as they say, the iron is hot? Is that what you're seeing?
Absolutely, Brad. We're definitely seeing that the time is right. And I think it really is also flavored with, I'm just trying to think of the date, 2017, the Mental Health Commission of Canada, as well as CSA, the Psychological Health and Safety Standard. So the folks who regulate all the occupational health and safety stuff, CSA, yeah, that's them. They released a psychological health and safety standard. And it was really at that point that organizations started to recognize that right now in our place and time, and the research is telling us, it costs us $51 billion a year in Canada, mental health in the workplace. That's what it costs employers. So we know it's number 2 in leading the leading cause of disability in the workplace. I think it's, my gosh, I'm trying to think off the 500,000 Canadians are absent from work every day because of mental health. So we know it's a significant risk in our workplaces. And so a lot of organization businesses, it's the right thing to do, but they're also recognizing that this is really good for business to start to really create the spaces that folks are safe and taking care. And again, because of my link with Workplace NL, we always look at that, 30, 40 years ago, we didn't wear hard hats. We didn't wear, fall arrest. My dad actually fell off a 2-story house and broke his back in the 80s. We didn't wear harnesses. But here we are now 40 years later, and that's something that we wouldn't even consider doing without those supports. And the hope is, in 20 years, 30 years, that there's going to be some things that we wouldn't even consider in the workplace that are actually kind of commonplace right now.
Well, speaking of the new workplace, that prompts my next question. We are seeing across the country and around the world more organizations, whether it's private sector or public, nonprofits and charities, they are implementing mental health leave as opposed to requiring individuals to take sick leave, because as we know, mental health is not a sickness. So, this is something that that I think more progressive groups and organizations are doing. Are you seeing much of that here in this province?
We haven't seen a lot more of that. We are slowly getting to the point of being accepting when folks use their sick leave for mental health, because of course what often happens, employees are left feeling that they have to lie about the condition, so calling and saying, oh, I have a migraine today, when in reality you may in fact have discomfort or physical pain, but that it's due to mental health and not physical health. So we're getting a little bit further from that. We're finally getting to the point where some organizations are openly accepting, I need to take a sick day for my mental health. But I don't think we're close yet. We're definitely not where we need to be with that. I see way too many organizations where folks are still actually being penalized for taking those sick days.
I think progressive employers, and actually whether you're progressive or not, every employer should consider having some type of a policy in place for that. It's not right for someone to have to take sick leave because they have, need a mental health day. And I've certainly followed this right across the country, and those that know me know that I employ a number of people with my roles in the community. And that's one of the first things I always say to my staff right up front. Folks, if you need support, I'm there for you. And don't hesitate to tell me truly what's going on. It's in confidence. You will not be judged. I'm here to help you the same way that you help our organization grow and succeed. So if you're not there for your employees, then you're not a very good boss. And I think mental health days or some type of a policy that allows it to be openly discussed and openly presented without having to lie is very, very important.
Absolutely.
So I've asked enough questions. Someone else has to ask a few, but I will just pose this just to confirm. So the warm line is a free of charge service?
Absolutely free of charge, and it's open for, I think we're 14 hours a day now, 9 a.m. to 12 midnight, 7 days a week. And
Excellent.
While the scatter snow day puts us at a commission, other than that, we operate right through, including Christmas Day.
Excellent. Okay, Tina, I'll hand it over to you because I know you have a question.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, I just wanted to check in, Paula. This is, something that we've been doing, and as chair of the task force and working together with all of our other members, it's really important for us to be trying to learn about how to make people aware of these services, how to have these services accessible to individuals. And I have to share, I'm actually here in Goose Bay this week, and we're here doing some stuff with mental health and some training. And it's amazing to hear, being here firsthand, and to hear what people are feeling and how people are feeling about the resources that are available, or lack thereof, to be honest. And so I know that your services are provided right through the province and here into Labrador. But what are some of the things, and even in my past opportunities of talking even with elected officials and individuals at our conferences and things, that seems to be the overwhelming consensus, is that this, as you said, the services are there, but people just don't know how to access them or how to discover what they are, what is available to them. And so what do you recommend for that? And what is it that's happening now? Like, for example, if I go back to, the workshops tomorrow and I say, hey folks, this is here and this is, how you find out about it. What do you suggest as far as that's concerned?
For sure. The number one thing I'd promote right off the top would be Bridge the Gap. If you folks haven't already heard of that. It's a program that initiated in Eastern Health, but then moved into government. And it's a really innovative program in that it has a couple of different functions. It's a service directory first and foremost. So anywhere in the province you can use, is like you put in the postal code, it'll bring up, or it'll actually use like your location on your telephone, those smartphones. Or you can pick by health region. So you can actually go on there, choose Labrador, pop in your postal code, and it will pop up to say, hey, in this region, here are all the services available. So that's the number one thing I think I would promote. The second thing about Bridge the Gap is that there's some functions on there that you can actually use in real time. And what I mean by that is there's something called the mood meter is one of the examples that I use, and I use it all the time. You get on there and it asks you, how are you feeling? And I'll say, I'm feeling anxious today. They'll ask you on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the worst. And I'll say, oh, I'm feeling a high level today. So a 4 out of 5. And they'll actually give you a drop down menu. Oh my gosh, it sounds like you're having some high anxiety. Have you considered taking a walk? Have you considered calling a friend? Have you considered adult coloring? And so that's like a real time use. And then the third function of that, there's actually some programs like you can actually sign up and like sign on to. So I Can Conquer Anxiety is one. The Breathing Room is one. Strongest Families, which is a parenting one. So you can sign up to all of those programs free of charge through Bridge the Gap as well. So
awesome. Number
one, if I leave nothing, is Bridge the Gap, because Bridge the Gap also promotes the Warm Line. And of course, the Warm Line, we would know about all of those services.
Excellent. Thanks, Paula.
Thanks, Tina. Anyone else with questions?
I will note, so Nicole had another question there in the chat. She asks, is the review of our policies and procedures to be more inclusive a free service? And was that provided by Workplace NL, or is it through Channel?
So that's actually through Channel, and because we don't actually have a formal program where we do that, it's essentially, Marina or Tina calls me up and says, "Paula, you got 5 minutes," and I'll have a look at it. So right now, it's not even a formalized project, we'll say. If you call us up and we've got some time, we'll have a look. But if it's a larger project, if you want us to look at, all of your programs, for example, or all of your policies, we'd certainly want to discuss time and negotiate the costs there. But of course, we're nonprofit, so it wouldn't be an excessive cost.
I guess I have one question. I'm a town councillor in Leggy Bay, Middle Cove, Outer Cove. And I guess we, in our last meeting, we sort of discussed what we can do to bring back to our town councils. If you could name one program to sort of start off, because I mean, let's face it, most town councils aren't focusing around mental health. And I don't think it's because they don't want to. I think it's because they don't know where to start. Where would you suggest where to start? And if you could suggest one concept to sort of bring and say, I think, all staff and council should do this program or something similar.
Hands down, mental health first aid.
Okay, yeah. Perfect.
That would be my number one suggestion. There's a 2-day in-person in-person training program, but we've actually just changed it through the Mental Health Commission of Canada. They've actually just created a virtual course. Wow. So I teach that as well. I just taught it this morning, actually. Super, super, super amazing program. It does an overview of what to do in when there's a case of declining mental health, if there's a case of crisis, and if there's a case of an emergency. And it talks about how you respond in those situations. The second one I would talk about is the suicide intervention training program that I think Tina referenced. Super, super helpful course, very, very tangible skills and skill sets. But if you were to only have, sorry, Tina, if you were only to have one choice of a program, I think mental health first aid gives enough of an overview of suicide intervention so that you don't feel completely out of the water. And then that leads you into a more specialized program, such as Assist.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, knowledge is power, as corny as everyone says. But if you don't know where to start, sometimes you won't even take that leap, or you won't try to because you're afraid to fail. When sometimes, failing is what makes you successful. But I think, going forward, I think it'd be really great for us to advocate to municipalities and say, this is a starting point at least.
Absolutely. And again, with that program, it is designed for the general public. So it talks about, very simplistic, like, hey, your neighbor Mate seems to be drinking a little bit more. How are we going to talk to Mate? So it is very much, it's not that high level. It is for the general population's real life examples. And of course, if you choose me to facilitate, then you get the lived experience as well. Because when I do facilitate, I bring my own experience. I talk about what it feels like to live with depression and anxiety. I talk about my own experience. So it adds that extra flavor, if you will.
Definitely. Great. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ashley. And I will, just in terms of cost, that is a course that does cost money, but there are definitely avenues for funding. So in terms of municipalities, I'm not sure like the frame or the layout of those programs, but I do know, Bell, let's talk. The grants are actually available to be applied for by charity organizations until middle of March. So there may be an option there. And I do know they give money to deliver mental health first aid. So there may be some room there for you folks to apply to get, 5 courses delivered through their funding.
And it just so happens that Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador is a charity.
Woo-woo.
So we may be able to lead that on behalf of this group. Tina, I think one of the comments that we've been talking about here is policies and procedures. Maybe it's something that the Mental Health Task Force could look at to develop some template policies, right, for us to distribute to municipalities. And
absolutely.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Thank you.
Paula, Isabel Fry posted, and I think it's an excellent follow-up to what we had just discussed. In general, what can we as municipalities do to help break the stigma within our communities? And a perfect question for Bell Let's Talk Day.
Fantastic question. My own personal opinion is that, talk. The more we talk, the more we break that stigma. We have never, as much as COVID has really created havoc in a lot of people's lives and has really changed things for a lot of us, we've never talked about mental health like at this level. We've never seen this type of conversation. When we have the minister, and again, you know, political views aside, when you have the minister of the province every single day mention the warm line, the provincial warm line, mention the fact that we're all struggling with our mental health, that we're not, you know, we're in this together, we're not alone. That to me, that really changed the benchmark. We've never seen those types of conversations before. And so for you folks, I think it is that conversation, being able to have that conversation, being open about those conversations. And again, certainly not challenging anyone or putting anyone on the spot, but if you have your own experiences, being open about that and being comfortable enough to share that. Of course, doing it safely, because we know it's not always safe to be open about our mental health or addictions issues. But if we're able to do that, it goes a long way when you can stand up and say, hey, I'm the mayor, the deputy mayor, the counselor, or whatever those roles are. And yeah, I struggle sometimes, and it's okay.
It was interesting, one of our first meetings of the Municipal Mental Health Task Force, and of course Tina and Ashley and others will remember this. The first question that was posed to us by the chair, Tina, was, you know, why did you join this group? And many of us certainly, you know, presented our own mental health concerns at that point, and it was a very friendly environment to do so. And it was the first time, I would suspect, a number of us actually put it on the table. And you know, I think that's one of the excellent purposes of this group, is that we are here for one another. Right? We're supporting those in the municipal sector, and by extension of supporting our own within the sector, we're supporting the public too. So I think this task force certainly has a great potential to make some excellent inroads for mental health awareness across the province. And I think you know, organizations like CHANNAL will be absolutely essential to us getting that message out. And I think it's an excellent way for us to partner now moving forward.
Excellent. And again, as I talked about earlier, of course, this is, you know, I just gave you a snapshot. Oh, I just gave you a snapshot of some of the things we do. But of course, we're a nonprofit, and we have quite a bit of flexibility in the work that we do. So we've actually designed a lot of things for folks. So if you come to us and say, hey, we're kind of hoping for this, we're looking for something like this, and it's not something that we really have on our plate right now, then let's do some work together. Just recently, in the last couple of years, we actually designed a program specifically for Eastern Health. Again, not sure if you're familiar with critical incident stress debriefing. That skill set that you will come together and debrief after a critical incident. Of course, unfortunately, the research is showing now it's probably not the best approach anymore. It's been used now since the 70s, and we know now that there's a couple of factors that really cause concern with that approach. And so our organization was able to pull together just knowledge learned from many different levels to create a brand new incident response training program based on peer support, based on mental health first aid, based on psychological health or psychological first aid. And it's a beautiful program because, again, it takes, you know, what works in all of those and blends them together into a really nice way to really what we call regroup as opposed to debrief. It's how we as an organization, whatever your organization is, okay, this thing has happened, whatever that might be, we need to regroup. We need to regroup, and we need to recover together as a team. And that's what that training does. And it was something that Eastern Health came to us and said, hey, we need something. And so we were able to put that together. So the message there, of course, is that that's another training that we have. But the message there is that if there's something that you're looking for that we're not exactly, you know, we have, or you're not exactly seeing, then we can have some conversations and figure that out together.
Mm-hmm. The item that I said I was going to come back to, I'll bring it up now. The duty to accommodate in the workplace. You mentioned this earlier in your presentation. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because it's a new concept to me. Even as an employer, I wasn't aware that that was in place. And can you just tell us what some of those duties are?
Sure. So from a human rights perspective, duty to accommodate is basically if you have someone in the workplace who there's a barrier within the workplace, and that might be a physical barrier, it might be a sensory barrier, any kind of barrier that impedes their ability to do the work. As an employer, you are bound, or you are duty-filled to accommodate up to undue hardship. Okay, and so it's challenging because undue hardship is not defined. So a small organization, a mom and pop shop with 2 people, maybe undue hardship is putting in a $50 ramp for a wheelchair user. Maybe that's undue hardship. Maybe they don't have those funds. For a bigger organization, maybe undue hardship is non-existent because nothing, a large organization, maybe there's nothing that would be too difficult for you folks to do. So that's a hard one because it's not defined, but we do know that the burden is there to prove that this is too difficult or too costly for the organization to do. So again, as an employer, you are bound to create an environment where folks are able to come to work, do their work in an effective and equal platform. So of course, those conversations have been happening for quite some time. But the challenge is folks always look at, I'm sorry, folks, can you hear those dogs overwhelming me, or is that okay? If
No, it's all good. No, it's not overwhelming you. It's all good.
I'll put on my mom face in a second. Oh gosh, I bet you there's like snow falling or something. They have the bark at the snow. So in terms of the duty to accommodate, of course, is typically around physical. So it's about opening the doorways. It's about creating the ramps. It's about having desks that can lower or raise. It's ergonomic, making sure people are ergonomically safe. So it's a lot of physical stuff. And so, of course, as of late with the conversations, the concern around duty to accommodate with mental health has come up. And what we've actually seen, believe it or not, is that employers actually overcompensate a lot of the time. And what I mean by that is I come into the workplace and I say, because you're my employer, Brad, you know that I live with mental health challenges. I come in late 3 days this week. As my employer, you go, oh, that's okay, Paula, don't worry about it. Well, you have a mental illness. We're not going to put any pressure on you, which is all well and good because I get to come in late every day. But of course, what happens is the environment begins to get a little bit tricky because other employees are seeing this. There's resentment happening. I'm not getting the same quality of work done, which means I'm not getting put into a position where maybe I'm getting the promotions. So in actual fact, it's really actually a negative on me, even though at the time it feels great and wonderful. So what's happening, employers, because they come from a well-meaning place, they don't want to put the pressure on folks. They're not really sure what to do. So they often will just overcompensate. And so what we do talk about in the training is things such as mental illness. It's a reason, but not an excuse, right? It's a reason why I come in late some days, but it doesn't give me an excuse to continue to come in late every day, right? So then as the employer, the duty to accommodate becomes a conversation. Me being able to say, hey, I'm going through a med change right now and mornings are really difficult for me. Can you put me on evening shifts just for this month? And you as the employer being able to say, yeah, we can do that, or absolutely not. Our shop closes at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't have a shift that I can give you. Does that kind of make sense?
Sure. Absolutely. That's excellent information, and very, very much appreciated as an employer to hear that.
Fantastic. As I said, we've got a full presentation that we do talk about all of the pieces in there, because it's funny, I created it for one municipality, and it was a 2-hour presentation, I think, and 4 hours into our 2-hour presentation, we had to stop. We weren't done because the dialogue was so rich. It was just such an amazing conversation. Folks really wanted to dig into it. So the 2-hour presentation is now a day-long presentation. And again, it really gives managers and leaders in particular that extra comfort to be able to manage, to be able to say, no, actually, you do have to show up to work on time. And no, actually, you do have to do all of the tasks other people do. Because sometimes it's hard and sometimes we don't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah. Nicole just asked how can she connect to that, what you're speaking of now, the programs and opportunities.
So just send us a message. Usually we'll just give out our admin email and she'll redirect it to our public education officer. So it's just admin, ADMIN @CHANNAL, and CHANNAL spelled CHANNAL.ca. And of
Excellent.
course, thanks to COVID, a lot of this is available now through virtually. We prior to last March, I was adamant we will not deliver training virtually. We will not move to an online platform. We need to be in person. We need person-to-person contact. But COVID has shown me the light. So
it's a new world we live in, that's for sure.
oh, brand new, brand new.
Any other questions for Paula, folks? Feel free to unmute yourself, because you can do that in this room.
Nicole. Yep.
Yeah, she missed the email. If you could just say it again.
Yeah, so it's admin, ADMIN, at channel, spelled CHANNAL.ca.
There you go. And I've got it in the chat window there as well.
There we go. And yeah, you just want to say you're looking for information around duty to accommodate or a workshop on it. The other one that I mentioned that I think you folks would really gain some insight from is, my gosh, let me think. Duty to accommodate and responding to critical calls. That would be another one as well. Those ones are typically free of charge. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, when Ashley asked the question, the mental health first aid really highlight the need and the value of that training program as well. Any final advice? Gosh, where do I start? I think one thing that we haven't talked about that we need to talk about, and especially today being Bell Let's Talk, is taking care of ourselves. As leaders in our community, whatever your title or your role is, folks look up to us. Sometimes we are seen as a hero, but let me tell you, you are a villain in somebody's story. And so times can be really difficult. We sometimes have to make difficult decisions. Sometimes we have to take it on the chin, even though we want to share our side of the story, we can't always. So really just wanting to give a little bit of a shout out there, taking the time to really take care of ourselves. And, I don't mean just, take a bubble bath or go for a walk. All those things are very, very valuable. We need to do it with intent. So one of the things that our organization that we do, we talk about taking care of yourself is not a luxury, it's a responsibility, right? You have a responsibility as an employee to be the best you that you can be. And so if we require that as a responsibility of your employment, then we create the space for that. So we are making sure we're giving our folks, our employees, time and space to debrief after difficult calls, to take some time to take a walk around the lake, because we're down by Kitty Vitty Lake here in the city. We give folks time to just go into what we call a quiet room. We have 4 quiet rooms in our space. Go into the quiet room and take a nap if that's what you need. Of course, we don't let them go all day. It's still a workplace after all. But if you need 5 minutes to just shut down and shut the world down, I would rather you take that 5 minutes and then come back and give me 80% than try to push through and give me 20%. It really does make a difference. And so stop. And so bringing that back around, that was my mom voice, sorry. So bringing that back around to you folks, how you take care of yourselves. So are you having those healthy boundaries? Are you, looking at when your workday begins and when your workday ends, and having that finite time where I'm not the mayor after this time. I'm not the deputy mayor after this time. I'm not the administrative support after this time. I know it's difficult. I'm an executive director. I am on 24/7. But you know what? There are times when you do actually need to shut down, shut the world out. One of my joys, I was actually probably one of the only people who was not excited when Riverhead St. Mary's Bay got their cell service, because it was the only place. And I'm like, sorry guys, I'm out of town for the weekend. I don't have cell service. I don't know what you're going to do. Sorry. And then when we got cell service, I actually didn't tell anyone for about a month. So because sometimes we need to shut it down. So really finding those moments, as brief as they may be, finding those moments where we can shut down and take care of ourselves, because again, we owe it to ourselves, our families, and the folks that we serve in whatever capacity. We owe it to them to be the best us that we can be. And we can't do that if we're not taking care of ourselves. We're, pretty sure that when you got anointed as mayor or whatever that process is, you didn't get a superhero cape. Pretty sure your superhero cape didn't come in the mail. So we're only mere mortals. And so us mere mortals have to make sure that we take care of ourselves. That would be definitely my biggest takeaway for you folks.
Someone used the analogy a couple of months ago that municipal politicians are like hunting dogs. Of course, you know, it's that type of a breed of dog will go even if they're hurt, and they will bleed out if they have a cut because they just want to keep hunting. And the hunter has to stop the dog. You know, I think of mayors, deputy mayors, and councillors just like that. We will go at our own detriment to help others. And you're absolutely right, Paula. We need to take stock and realize that we're not superheroes. We're humans.
Because who helps them when you're down and out?
Exactly.
Right. Excellent. Any other questions?
Any other
or
questions?
thoughts? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brad. Stealing your thunder.
No, just checking in. All good. I don't see any other questions there. So if you want to have a few thoughts, and then Tina will close it all out. So I'll leave it to you.
Fantastic. I guess my final thoughts are, again, swinging right back around to the Bell Let's Talk. Of course, there's sometimes some mixed school of thought around the value behind such a large organization doing such a what they claim to be selfless act. But at the end of the day, you know, we see it for what it is, an opportunity. It's an opportunity to talk. And so as much as we can promote that discussion, as much as we can use this as a speaking point, even to say, hey, it's Bell Let's Talk. What's that all about? But then also the other side of it is that financial gain, knowing that as a charity, there is an option, there's an opportunity for us to look at those funds and see what can we do with that. You know, maybe those funds, again, I haven't looked at it closely this year, so I don't know what the regulations are at this point, but I mean, maybe there's room to get some funds to make your policies more inclusive. Maybe there's funds to have a bulk of money that'll allow you to do assist in mental health first aid. So really looking at those opportunities and not seeing the mental health conversation or mental health education as an add-on. Unfortunately, a lot of times that's what it is. Well, we don't really have the money. It'd be nice if we had the money to do this. We might do it at a later time, but not to see it as an add-on, because it is an extremely important piece. Again, when we look at the stats, you know, we talk about 1 in 5 or 1 in 3, yet we also know 60% of people are not reaching out for help. You know, when we're talking about the rate of suicide, 10 Canadians every single day. We lose 10 Canadians every single day. You know, these are staggering numbers. And so this is not something we can just lay on the back burner and say, it's nice if we get to it someday. So we definitely want to talk about putting this as a priority, as you folks on this task force have done.
I see there's another question, I think, from Nicole. We love funds, Paula. Where do we find the funds and grants to help cover the cost of these courses? And then she's just giving her greatest thanks.
Fantastic. So again, what I can do, the link that I have, I think is yourself, Tina, and Brad are in on that link. I can just forward you the email that I have for the Bell Let's Talk grant. I'll send that along, and you can certainly feel free to share that with anyone who wants to share it.
Excellent.
Great.
Thank you.
I guess I just want to say a quick shout out as well to a couple of friendly faces on the line. Thanks, folks, for coming out and showing your support. Thanks, Marina, for not asking about my underwear. I always love when I come into a room and I see familiar faces. It's so nice to know that we're still being able to connect even through this difficult time.
Excellent. And now I see people giving thanks in the chat box, and myself as well, Paula, on behalf of the task force and Communities That Care. I mean, we were just thrilled when this came forward as an opportunity, and so taking the time to join us this evening, again on an incredible day like today. But I also want to echo your sentiments, and I just said it this morning in the training that we're in, is that, you know, Bell Let's Talk Day is so important, but we need to have that importance every day. And so I agree with you there for sure. And yeah, you know, that was awesome. I mean, you know, still, again, I'm so intrigued by, I do a lot of research and a lot of searching, we all do. And yet I still, every time I am participating in something like this, I still hear about something that I didn't know about, and I just love it. And so, and being able to take that back and take it to other people. So when I hear people say, well, yeah, I'm struggling here and I'm struggling there, but there's nothing for us, you know, being able to say, actually, let's sit down, let's take a look at that. There's really something for you. And that Bridge the Gap, I, you know, very familiar with that. I mean, they're like fantastic. Everything that's out there is really coming a long way, and it's wonderful to say that. So yeah, again, we want to thank you. I know I said it at the beginning. I said it at the beginning in case people might have had to leave, but I'll give another save the date for our next opportunity for webinar in February the 25th. And that is, again, as I mentioned earlier, that's with Craig Smith, the president of the St. John's Firefighters Association. And so he'll be coming on as well to share some wonderful information. And we will have more coming out about that, more information coming out about that over the next couple of weeks. And I'll just put it out there one last time, if there's anything else burning from anybody, that any questions at all for Paula before we let her go back to her cats and her dogs, and they were cute. I'm so glad they joined us.
My zoo.
the zoo of animals. Excellent. That's wonderful. Thanks. Great to see all of you. Thank you so much for giving your time this evening and joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody again. Thanks, Brad.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone.